What's up, y'all? I don't know if you got the memo, but we already planning for summertime shy around here, and I've got the first event you need to add to your list. Moats Entertainment presents Out and Amplified Night of Queer Music. This unforgettable evening will feature 3 groundbreaking artists, including Vincent, Parson James, and John Duff. Plus, you'll see queer local DJs from right here in the city, including bodybuilding drag queen Miss Toto and house disco techno artist Icy Baby. Catch Out and Amplified Night of Queer Music at the Riviera Theater on Friday, June 20th. Doors open at 6 and the show starts at 7:30. You can get your tickets at moatsevents.live/tickets. Today on CityCast Chicago, local activists and national advocacy organizations are suing ICE for illegal arrests. A coalition of Southeast Side neighbors are pushing back on Chicago's future quantum campus. And we've got thoughts on Lollapalooza's lineup. It's Friday, March 21st. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's talking about. Joining me to break down all of these stories and more, I've got Katrina Fan from Borderless Magazine in the building. Katrina, welcome back.
Thanks, Jacoby.
Always great to have you here. We've also got longtime guest Maxwell Evans in the building. Maxwell, welcome back to CityCast Chicago.
Hello. It's always happy to be on.
Over the last few weeks, whether you are new to the podcast or you've been here for a while, we have been celebrating 1,000 episodes. On Monday, we're officially releasing our 1,000 Things We Love About Chicago. We put a lot of hours into this list, y'all. A lot of thought. There are a lot of audience suggestions. We get real specific, real general. And what I've been noticing over the last couple of days as I've been editing this list is that it could have been 10,000 things. It could have been 50,000 things. I'm already feeling like we've left things off. I want to bring y'all in here. Katrina, if you had to add something to our 1,000 Things We Love About Chicago, what would it be?
This might be basic, but all the festivals and concerts, I feel like I never got to go too far to find someone that I want to see. They're always somewhere in Chicago.
There are so many versions of summer festivals, summertime shy, live music, seeing your friend perform at a local concert. Do you have a recent performance you've seen that right now that's your bar?
Well, this weekend I went to Knock 2 at Radius, and he's actually going to be at Lolla too. And I love his music, and he just came out with a new album too. So that was super fun.
That's what's up. Max, what's something you want to add to our 1,000 Things We Love About Chicago list?
Yeah, I feel like ever since I moved to Chicago, I've become really I'm deeply a South Sider. I rarely leave the South Side. Everything I love about the city is largely on the South Side. But I'm going to try and break with that because this past week, I went on a really long bike ride with my friends. We ended up going way out west and ended up in Columbus Park and seeing the Columbus Park Refectory for the first time. I was like, this reminds me so much of my personal heaven, the South Shore Cultural Center, the natural beauty, the architectural beauty, the feeling of just being out in the middle of nature while you're in the middle of the city. So yeah, getting out to Columbus Park, seeing a beautiful part of town I'd honestly seen once in my 6 years here. I need to get out to the west side a lot more often than I have been because it's beautiful over there too.
I love that. Number 181 on the list, Columbus Park Refectory and Council Ring. I'm really excited for people not only to go through the list, but to see one of our designs, the way that we put all of it together to represent one of Chicago's most iconic symbols. I can't wait for people to see that. If you still want to add to our list, please let us know. Our phone number is always available. You can leave us a text or a voicemail at 773-780-0246. Give us your name, your neighborhood, and tell us something you love about the city of Chicago. You could hear yourself on the podcast. Every single week, we cover a lot of stories, and on Friday, we bring our friends in to talk about some of the biggest ones happening in their world this week. And Katrina, I want to start with you. You pointed my attention towards this lawsuit from the National Immigration Justice Center, the American Civil Liberties Union, and some local activists. calling for the release of individuals who are illegally arrested by ICE during this very cruel set of arrests that have been taking place over the last couple of weeks and months. Can you tell us more about this lawsuit?
So the lawsuits are alleging that ICE violated the settlement from 2022, which was kind of a similar lawsuit talking about the ways that ICE can arrest people here in Chicago and nationwide. And so the settlement says that ICE needs to have a warrant to arrest someone if they want to arrest someone and detain them for being here without a legal status. But the current lawsuit is alleging that ICE is arresting folks here in Chicago without lawsuits, or arresting them and then creating lawsuits afterwards, like after the matter.
We're creating warrants after the fact.
Yeah, creating warrants for the arrest after the arrests are happening. The 2022 settlement states that they have to document what happened in the arrest, specifically the fact that they were arrested without a warrant in the first place, the facts about why this individual was probably likely to escape, which is why they needed to arrest them without a warrant, and other facts related to like how the arrest happened, why they thought they should arrest this person, or why they thought that this person was a non-citizen. And so this lawsuit is alleging that they're not doing this, right? They're not documenting why they're arresting these people, and they're just arresting people. They're stopping folks in cars and arresting them without warrants and detaining them. In one of the cases, they arrested someone who was actually a U.S. citizen and detained them for a period of time before releasing them after finding out they were a U.S. citizen. But I think it just is adding to this conversation about keeping ICE accountable for this arrests that are happening under this immense pressure, right, from the Trump administration to ramp up the number of arrests. People are worried that these arrests are happening in conditions that are unlawful and that are violating the civil rights of people who are here in the United States.
Yeah, we saw a video posted on social media, I want to say a month and a half ago, maybe, of a father returning home, having just gotten tamales for his family out in Elgin, and ICE wasn't even looking for him, and they pushed into their home, and this man is still sitting in detention to this day. Katrina, have we heard anything more about that case?
No, not that I know of, not of any updates, and I think that that's true for many cases, is that folks are just not sure what happens next, right? Their family members are detained, taken to places outside of Illinois because Illinois has the law that prevents people from being detained here. But then it's just kind of unclear, right, where their family members are going, and they can check online, but they're not always sure like how to get in touch with them and what happens next. And it's kind of all up to the discretion, right? ICE and the immigration courts, which are already notoriously slow. So I think it's hard for people to know what happens next for them.
Yeah, every step the Trump administration has made it clear that they are moving not only quickly, but haphazardly. They've said churches are not safe, schools are not safe. They've rounded people up in their workplaces without warrants. The lawsuit is calling for Eduardo Orozco, the man I mentioned in the story in Elgin, to be released. They are calling for ICE to hand over like details of all of the people who are arrested, since January 20, as well as weekly updates. We will find out if they will comply with these requests.
This episode is sponsored by Babbel. Are you holding back on foreign travel plans this year because you're afraid of the language gap? I'm not, because I have Babbel. I'm David Plotz, the CEO of CityCast, and I'm learning Spanish on Babbel, getting ready for a trip to Mexico City. Babbel is the language learning app that gets you talking. Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons, handcrafted by over 200 language experts, get you to begin speaking your new language in 3 weeks or at whatever pace you choose. Babbel's tips and tools are inspired by the real-life stuff you actually need when communicating. With a focus on conversation, you'll be ready to talk wherever you go. Babbel has given me great lessons on getting directions, ordering in a restaurant, and making plans. And of all the things I'm doing in Mexico City, I'm probably most excited about the soccer game we're going to. So I was excited to learn how to cheer from Babbel. That'll be me you'll hear yelling, "Fuerza Tigres! Fuerza Tigres!" With over 16 million subscriptions sold, Babbel's 14 award-winning language courses are backed by a 20-day money-back guarantee. Let's get more of you talking in a new language. Babbel is gifting our listeners 60% off subscriptions at babbel.com/citycast. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/citycast. Spelled BABBEL.com/citycast. Babbel.com/citycast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Maxwell, over to you. You covered a meeting between community members and some of the developers behind this Promise Quantum campus. We've talked about it on the podcast before. Lawmakers are selling it as yet another mega project that is going to bring, notoriety and jobs and trickle down development to the community. This is one of the opportunities where we got to hear from local activists, local community members. Are they buying that story they're being sold?
It's, as always, I believe the last time I was on, I mentioned that it's this tricky balance of like genuine excitement and genuine distrust kind of living in existence at the same time. And that's really what came up at this most recent meeting. I think there were a lot of people who were actively protesting. I mean, seemed pretty organized, as if like the ending to the intro presentation that the city and the developers had put on had just happened. And then all of a sudden you start hearing hollering from one spot, you start hearing hollering from another spot, and people are really raising up like, why don't we have a community benefits agreement? Why don't we have more details about the conditions, the environmental conditions of this site? Why don't we have more details about the plan as to how these potential toxins in the ground, these conditions as they're remediated? Why don't we have more details about how you're going to protect the neighborhood as you clean this site up in the future? Things like that. And so I did definitely hear from people who are just straight up opposed and are like, I don't want this at all. But for the most part, it really seems like people are like, this is a project we might want. You just need to tell us what we're getting into. And so that theme over the past year or so, or approaching a year, it was announced in July, that theme just keeps playing up. And this most recent meeting was kind of more of the same on that front.
Did developers have anything new to say to community members? Did they seem like there was any desire for a community benefits agreement?
I think at this point, it's pretty clear that there's really no taste for that. Somebody in the crowd, once things kind of calmed down and the protest part of it was over, they did move into a pretty straightforward Q&A session. And I felt like people were coming prepared with real questions. The answers that they were getting, to some extent, were real in response. But on the front of the community benefits agreement, somebody explicitly asked, like, city officials, are you going to set up a meeting with us and the developers to hash this out? And rather than address that at all, the city official actually went down the path of, well, we've got this youth program at Fermilab that we've got going, and that was built off of community response. And so that might not be a community benefits agreement, but that shows we're listening to the community's concerns and that we're responding to them. But yeah, if you bring up the topic of, will you sign an agreement? Will you meet about signing an agreement? There's always a path out of it. There's always a path to like other ways they're responding to the community, which I don't want to discount that. That's a real thing. I do believe that some of these programs, some of these plans wouldn't have been put in place had the city not, or had neighbors not spoken up. But at the same time, this the specific thing, community benefits agreement, signing an agreement with the developers and community organizations, that seems to be like a live wire nobody involved with the project really wants to touch.
We're talking about billions of dollars, 128 acres of, let's be real, disinvested and abandoned land. And that's what that represents, right? Lost jobs, the shuttering of an economy for an entire neighborhood. And so the promise of not only a research campus that uplifts the city and the state, a hospital, housing, it's not being wholesale rejected by neighbors, but they want to know that they are in this future, that the residents who have been here, who have had to endure through, build in spite of, are seen as a part of this future project. What's the current state of the Illinois Quantum and Microelectronics Park?
Yeah, so we learned at this meeting this week, a sale actually hasn't gone through yet. And while they kind of danced around the wording on it, the city had mentioned that last couple months have been a, quote, tumultuous time. I mean, Trump was inaugurated 2 months ago, I think it's pretty clear what he was alluding to there. So I'm kind of hearing that the current state of the federal government might be posing some issues. So a sale has not been completed, but at this point, they're still saying like we're on track for groundbreaking this spring. We're on track for the first phase of the project to open in 2027. So if there are any holdups, if there are any issues on completing a deal, they're at least saying for now that's not posing any barriers to staying on the timeline they proposed when they first announced it. So still looking like construction will start pretty soon. Still looking like the project would be open by 2027. And yeah, if, the city, the state, everybody involved is really pushed to make this happen as quickly as possible. So I'd imagine they'd get a little antsy with any further delay here.
To read more about Maxwell's reporting on this community meeting, as well as to learn more about the lawsuit from the National Immigration Justice Center and the ACLU, please check the links in our show notes. Katrina, some of your colleagues at Borderless Magazine have been covering how the Trump administration's immigration policies have impacted particular refugee groups, and they published a story about the Rohingya community in Chicago.
Yeah, so Trump paused refugee admissions on his first day in office. And so that has had impacts on refugee communities from a variety of different ethnicities, but one that we wanted to focus on was the Rohingya population, especially because Chicago is home to the largest population of Rohingya nationwide. There's around 2,000 Rohingya refugees here who have family members who are still in Myanmar, which in Myanmar, a lot of Rohingya refugees, most of Rohingya refugees are facing a humanitarian crisis. A lot of human rights groups have warned that it's an ongoing genocide in Myanmar, and that Rohingya refugees by the hundreds of thousands are escaping to surrounding refugee camps, right? And some want to be reunited with family here in Chicago and nationwide, but are not able to because of this refugee pause. So I think it's just very devastating for this group of people who are just kind of looking to be with their families, and even people without families, right? Looking to escape a government that has repressed them, that has discriminated against them, and that has denied them citizenship. I think the Rohingya are considered one of the largest stateless populations in the world, and they don't have protections from Myanmar. They don't have protections under any other governments, right? So there are these stateless refugees who are just looking for a place to go, and are not allowed to come to the United States because of this refugee pause.
The federal government has also paused U.S. aid to the community as well. Really appreciate your colleagues really zoning in to talk about the different ways these policies have shattered people's sense of stability and community, the ways in which it has continued to separate and disconnect families. And I've constantly reminded people that the separation of families is something we have been reporting on across administrations. It's particularly haunting in like a deeply troubling way.
Many people spend up to 40 years, right, in refugee camps before they're able to be resettled. And now that the refugee program in the U.S. is paused, I think that uncertainty, right, of where they can go after leaving a country that has discriminated against them and just created such a humanitarian crisis where they are subject to persecution and violence, there's just so much uncertainty about what happens next. And people are faced with these options, right? Do I stay somewhere where I might die? Or do I stay somewhere where I don't know what happens next and stay somewhere in these crowded camps where there's limited access to food, resources, education even. So people just face these impossible decisions. And the refugee pause makes it no easier.
Maxwell, earlier this month, I read a story about some Chicago residents in South Shore who live in buildings owned by CKO Real Estate. And they had been going weeks, even months without crucial utilities. Can you kind of catch us up on what happened initially and where we are now?
Yeah, so over the past few weeks, residents of CKO Real Estate have been kind of going through a situation where they're bringing their problems into the public. So over the past few months, people in buildings on Paxton Avenue, on Clyde Avenue, elsewhere in South Shore have been living through some really awful conditions. The city has come through and inspected some of these buildings. In one case, they found 31-degree indoor temperatures, which when I saw that, I was just like, that's how long does the heat have to be off for it to match the outdoors? Like 31 degrees, that's an outdoor temperature. That's not just like the heat was off for a day and then all of a sudden it's like that cold inside. That's where's the insulation? How long has the heat been off? Like all of these severe, like when I saw 31 degrees, it was just that's crazy, to be honest. They've been dealing with utility shutoffs like electricity and water. City inspectors have found infestations, which unfortunately are no rarity in South Shore. I've experienced that myself in past buildings I've lived in. Just all sorts of these terrible conditions. And then it really culminated with in a building near 67th and Paxton late last month, there was a fire. And after a few days after this fire took place, CKO Real Estate, the property management for this building, essentially told the residents in that building and others that they were managing that like we're not in this business anymore. You try and reach out to your property manager, they're not going to be doing their job essentially. And to get that kind of a message, I really had to stop and be like, all right, I'm a reporter, but I'm also a renter in South Shore. And I just wanted to imagine like, what if I got a letter saying that my property manager wasn't going to respond to my calls and also no sort of follow up on who to reach out to?
Not that they sold the building, just like we ain't got nothing for you.
Exactly.
Who were they expecting to still get their rent money? Like, or were they kicking people out? Like,
that's the thing is these sorts of answers weren't available. They said that the portal would be shut down, so that means like things like rent, like maintenance requests, that wasn't going to be available through this company. Essentially, to wait and see. Like, we'll have a new property management company for you eventually. Wait to see when that happens. And so, after about a week or two, that company did come in. That's called PIP Realty Group. Their signs are now posted on the outsides of these buildings. And so after a couple weeks of waiting, neighbors eventually did find out who their replacement was going to be. And within a few days of that, PIP was posting signs on residents' doors saying, you have 1 day to let us know who lives in this building. Otherwise, we're going to lock you out and we're going to throw all your stuff away. So going from one property management that shut down with no real warning to another property management that's giving them some real scary vibes that they had described. So yeah, just kind of bringing all this out into the public. They've been doing that over the last few weeks. And my story kind of updates their demands around they want moving assistance. They want to be ensured that the rent that they paid when the buildings were, quote, unlivable, they get that money back, as well as a few other demands around things like meeting with PIP Realty Group so they can put a face to this name and like know who they're dealing with as they move forward.
Have you heard back from PIP in terms of the notes that they've put on people's doors, as well as how they plan to, interact with residents moving forward?
No, I did reach out a few times by email to contacts I'd found for PIP and didn't get any response there. I also reached out by email and phone to CKO's principal, Chiku Patel. Didn't get a response there either. And just from past experience, reporting a lot of times about landlords who tenants are complaining about, residents who are having issues with their buildings to this extreme, it's very unlikely that I've ever gotten a property management company to talk on the phone. This is a similar case. No word from them yet on that.
What is the alder saying about what they can do to hold a company like CKO or even PIP accountable?
Yeah, so I haven't personally chatted with Alderman Desmond Yancey, whose Fifth Ward covers a lot of these buildings. I haven't spoken with him yet, but based off what residents have said, they have met with him a couple of times. He's expressed concern over it. As to a path forward, I haven't heard anything concrete. I've heard from a few people that there may be a meeting in the works. But yeah, I still need to chat with the alderman about what he plans to do with this situation. I do know that the city's has filed a buildings court case against at least one of them over the heat issues that I'd mentioned. And just from past experience reporting on the Ellis Lakeview apartments in Kenwood, to your point about how these systems can kind of be in favor of the landlords, I know that Injustice Watch has also done incredible reporting around just how these housing courts do play in favor of the landlord. So yeah, as you mentioned, like even when situations are this bad, the path to getting some sort of restitution, to getting some sort of new management, to getting any sort of things for the residents that they're calling for can be a long one.
Every single episode of CityCast Chicago ends the same way, and that's with some good news. Katrina, you want to give it a try? Some good
no,
news.
it's too early.
No, come on, you got it. Come on.
News.
Woo, touchdown, but out. Come on.
Oh my gosh.
All right, we're gonna start with you. Lollapalooza's lineup has been announced. I've gotten some back and forth from people on how they feel about it, and so I brought in Katrina, of course, because last year you and I went Lolla lineup for Lolla lineup. I think if I'm remembering correctly, I think you beat my ass, but I can't remember who the people voted for.
Ooh,
but if I remember correctly,
okay. I didn't know.
I think they voted for you. I think they voted for you. How you feeling about this? Can you tell us who are some of the big headliners and who are some of the people you're watching for and how you feel about it overall?
Some of the headliners for this year's Lolla is Olivia Rodrigo, Sabrina Carpenter, Tyler, A$AP Rocky, Gracie Abrams, Doechii. I think it's good people, but I will say for me, this is like not the strongest Lolla lineup I've seen. Like, we need some new people up in here. Like, but I will say Sabrina, she was at Lolla, I think a few years ago too, or in recent years, and now she's a headliner. So I think that's exciting to see for her. And I am excited to see Doechii because I feel like I got into her recently, like a lot of other people, because she kind of really blew up in the last year, especially with her new album, Alligator Bites Never Heal. But I would love to see that in person. I think she's a strong performer. All of her performances like that I've seen are so cool and they're so unique. So I'm excited for that potentially. And also all the fun K-pop groups like Twice.
We already know Lolla is for a younger crowd, but it feels like it's for the youngest in their younger crowd. Tyler's been here 2021, 2018, probably some other years as well. I wasn't shocked by any of these or most of these headliners. They all feel like relevant in some respects. I was happy as I sort of moved through the list. Big fan of Orion's Son, Isaiah Rashad, Clairo. So there were a couple of names that as I went through it, I'm like, if some of my favorites, right, Raven Lene, K Crusade, even Star Bands, if a lot of my favorites were all on the same day, I could make a case. But like spread out across the entire weekend, I'd be hard pressed. So we talked about it last year. I'd be hard pressed for a Lolla lineup to convince me I needed to be in all of that for that many days. And so I'm not sure. But I mean, again, if you somehow got, I don't know how they're gonna split up the headliners, but if you ended up with a Doechii Tyler on the same day, and then Clairo, Orion, K Crusade, Isaiah Raven was all on that same day, and somebody was paying for my ticket, you might be able to catch me sliding through it real quick, just in and out. Max, anybody on this list jump out to you?
Yeah, you had mentioned Orion's Son is just like one of my favorites, and I'm so glad to hear that like other fellow fans on the call like definitely want to see Orion's Son if I were to go, but I'm probably not gonna, to be honest. Looking at the rest, like you mentioned, Isaiah Rashad, Star Bands, I didn't even see her in this one. That would be an excellent show. JPEG Mafia is somebody that like I feel like I like his music, but absolutely despise his fan base. So like I would want to see a one-on-one concert, not be in a festival crowd for him. So yeah, I mean it's a lot of good names, but that's what I think it kind of is for me, is like it's good names. It's not necessarily like, oh, I want to go to a 3-day festival type name. So yeah, I don't know if that's because I'm just getting older, like you said, kind of phasing out of the like demographic that Lollapalooza targets. I'm perfectly fine with that, not bitter at all. But at the same time, yeah.
I don't know. Somebody sounded a little. No.
Hey, they threw in T-Pain for us. They threw in T-Pain for us.
Yeah, I don't know. It probably wouldn't draw me out. McGee. I like McGee a lot. again, it's a lot of names I recognize, I enjoy listening to, like on my daily commute or whatever. But yeah, I don't need a festival for it.
Maxwell, over to you. We're going to keep talking about live music. What is your some good news?
What I wish I had done is try to sing like FK Twigs, but I don't have that kind of voice. I'm going to get to see her next week. And the last time I saw her was on the Magdalene tour about 5-6 years ago at this point. To this day, that's the best concert I've ever seen in my life. She was up there doing like sword play, like 5 different costume changes. Like it was a show in a way that I'd never seen before. Like usually you go to a concert, you have some cool lighting effects, maybe you have some pyrotechnics at these bigger shows, but I've never seen like a stage performance from an artist as big as her, or honestly ever. Like I've never seen something like I saw when she was on the Magdalene tour. So now that she's out touring for Eusexua, which is my second favorite album she's ever put out, second favorite project she's ever put out after LP1, like this is somebody near and dear to my heart. I'm gonna see for the second time ever, and it's just like I'm beyond excited about it.
And even when I see her on like, somebody might be stopping her on TikTok to be like, what are you wearing today? It's just so ethereal. Every time she's on screen, I'm like sat and I'm watching. So Sasha has some really good shows coming up. Glorilla gonna be there on Sunday.
What?
Iggy Pop gonna be there on Monday, and then you got Twigs on Wednesday next week. So yeah, get over to the Sasha if you have not been there. Yeah, Katrina, you lit up when I said the Glow Tour coming to Sasha.
Yeah, I didn't know she was gonna be here. I missed that.
See, I got your back. March 23rd, Glorilla, the Glorious Tour. Doors open at 7 p.m. I got you.
I might have to go by. I might have to go there.
I'm going to finish us out, and I'm going to come one more level down in live music. We started at Lolla, we went to the Salt Shed, and now we're going to head over to Principal Barbers in North Lawndale for the John Walt Foundation Amped Up Open Mic Series. This is the 4th edition of the open mic. It's going to be at 4 o'clock. MF and Mello is going to be hosting alongside the 3rd. DJ Dez is going to be spinning. Bella Boz is the featured artist. Sign up starts at 3. The open mic starts at 4. It is free, but you can RSVP at the link in our show notes. They will have food available as well. Shout out to Principal Barbers over in North Lawndale. That's where we sat down and interviewed the mayor back when he was campaigning, so a very long time ago. We love to hear what shows are you excited to see soon. Is there anybody on the Lolla lineup you're interested in, or do you got any favorite open mics? Again, our DMs, our voicemail, all of this is open to you. 773-780-0246. Leave us a text or a voicemail. All you gotta do, your name, your neighborhood, who you're excited to see. Whether it's Lolla lineup, a concert that's coming to the city soon, or an open mic series that you love visiting. Please join me in thanking our guest today from Borderless Magazine, Katrina Pham. Katrina, thank you so much for being here.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
And from Block Club Chicago, Maxwell Evans. Max, thank you for joining us today.
Yes, indeed. I'm sure I'll see you soon.
Before we get out of here, please join me in thanking the people who make CityCast Chicago possible. Our executive producer is Simone Alisea. Our producer is Michelle Navarro. Our Hey Chicago newsletter editor is Ava Wanowski. Our roving producers this week were Lizzie Goldsmith and Selena C. Reynolds. Our roving newsletter editors were Natalia Aldana and Lane Fisher. Our social media manager is Rick Homuth. The music we all love is from Sam Thousand, All the Kimonos, and Mark Greenberg from the Mayfair Workshop. Continue your support of all of us by going to our website, chicago.citycast.fm. Check out our podcast episodes you may have missed, our latest articles. Check out our neighborhood and walking guides. Subscribe to our daily newsletter, Hey Chicago. Consider becoming a member of CityCast Chicago. And most importantly, be back here bright and early on Monday. Or, whatever day you like to listen to like a bunch of episodes at once, whatever that day is, come back on that day. We gonna be here. I'll talk to you soon. Peace. Do people be like, Katrina, you are fam? Right. Do people do that?
No, but like when I was running for student government in high school, I tried to brand myself like that. I was like, I'll be your fam. And then I was like, never again.
I love that.